There's enough of a gap between Trails games that I tend to forget how big of an undertaking they are before I play them. This is because of its ambitious storytelling that almost feels like playing through a book, taking the time to foreshadow and detail every plot point in a way that makes its story truly shine in every entry, which is important in Trails from Zero with its older aesthetic that usually would see me not play a game like this. But the magic of Trails is that I played over 80 hours with it and loved every minute of it. There's not just great story to be found in Trails though, with getting to properly understand its core systems in this entry being one of the many joys I had while playing, and helped to make for a game I'm very excited to talk about, as this series is a must for fans of deep JRPG stories, as Trails from Zero continues this trend in a highly enjoyable way in a big game that I'm very happy I could play this year and finally made its way to the West in English. In a story that is an arc behind the lost English release in the Trails series and fills in an important gap in the story-heavy world, Trails from Zero is the first of two games telling the story of the city of Crossbell, an important area in the overarching Trails story, and is where we get to know the SSS, consisting of Lloyd, Tio, Ellie, and Randy, who may be recognizable to those who have played Cold Steel, with this entry letting us truly understand the bigger role they play in Trails' story. When I first started Trails from Zero, it was a treat to be reminded of how well it foreshadows events, with for example Lloyd's observation of a seemingly meaningless old building in the distance ending up being one of the main hubs for the SSS in the game, and this continues in so many moments throughout, whether it be hinting towards big events that you'll stumble upon later, or making you interested in characters that may play a role some tens of hours later. It also manages to mix this in with enough world-building details that it's not like you can tell what the plot twists are going to be, and because of that, the way Trails from Zero kept adding meaning to its world through plot moments and small events was fascinating to me, to the point that by the end of the game, every plot-related side quest felt worth doing, with even some of them changing the dialogue of certain moments that always made me feel fulfilled to do them, especially with it giving you a chance to influence bigger story moments with the occasional dialogue choice too. Trails from Zero once again shows that story really is the shining star of this series, and if you're a fan of the Trails series, despite its older visual style, you'll be pleased to know that all the detail and world building you love from the series is here in Trails from Zero, and if somehow this is your first Trails, you can look forward to a story-rich world that will see the world and story grow to high levels of detail every hour you put in. If you've been following the Trails series, you'll be pleased to know that Trails from Zero is easy to pick up if you know the series, as things like Sepith and its unique action time turn-based system are present, and with there being less systems as this is an older Trails game, it was a great way for me to grasp these systems that are fundamental parts of the series that made me appreciate it even more and will probably see me play Trails better and have even more fun in future entries. The most interesting of these was the return of Trails' enjoyable turn-based battle system that I thought would end up feeling more vanilla in comparison to Cold Steel's battles that feature the occasional mech, but thanks to the active time system and Zero's special Team Rush bonus move and unique special attacks, this system ends up feeling flashy enough and pretty unique and engaging in the way it combines active and turn-based elements well, which is pretty before its time for a game that originally came out in 2010. I was expecting for battles to move in typical RPG fashion, with your turn coming up, weaknesses exploited, and maybe a craft used here and there, but if you pay attention to the bonuses that come up on the timeline, things get much more interesting. Every few cycles of turns has bonuses like recovering your various health and magic bars or getting a critical attack pop up that keeps things interesting, and the enemy can actually benefit from many of these things too, making it important to keep an eye on things, especially since you can interrupt with S-Crafts. For those who don't know, S-Crafts are the special attack of the Trails series and are dished out using craft points that are built up as you deal damage with other types of attacks like magic during battle, and the fact that they're able to cut into the timeline is where they get fun, as if you cut and use them with a critical bonus for example, they can deal even more damage while saving you from a critical attack from the enemy, so keeping an eye on the timeline and your craft points becomes an important strategic part of battle that makes it quickly go beyond just being your average turn-based system. Even more strategy comes in with the depth of these S-Crafts, with various types being available to use to make for some good decision making. An easy example is that the more craft points you have above the necessary 100, the harder they hit, making you consider whether it's worth taking advantage of that critical bonus now or once you have the full 200. Also, also to consider are the new combo crafts that you get from special events that always take 100 craft points that leave you with some to spare, or the team rush ability that pops up that hits hard but comes at the cost of being able to use magic or abilities that turn, which is another decision to make. And with all these crafts having different target effects and areas, there's a lot to consider during battle that meant I always had to be paying attention in a way that I enjoyed. I've also talked about in other videos how I finally understood Sepith and Quartz, with the former being both a money system and the way you acquire magic-like skills along the way based on the type of quartz you equip and which orbital line you put them on. All in all, I think the lesser amount of mechanics made it a great way to appreciate and get good at using all of them in this entry, and with a good amount of challenge on normal mode, each battle felt really satisfying, especially when I was using all its mechanics right in harder battles that had me staring at HP bars, and make Zero what I think is a more approachable way to get to know the Trails series in an enjoyable JRPG that manages deep story and gameplay very well once again. I was expecting my Trails from Zero journey to be a very one-and-done kind of experience, as an 80-hour story is certainly not small, but I was impressed with the way it made me want to play it again thanks to its own style of New Game Plus and the fun little moments I had in its world. One thing that made me want to play it again were the chest lines that I discovered for the first time in this journey that are a real cherry on top of a great script, and the way they rip on you for taking from them as you play. I wasn't really interested in mini-games in this entry, so this became my favorite extra thing to do in Zero aside from story-filled quests, and it's a little tempting to do the achievement to get all of them, cruelly but appropriately only available in New Game Plus, as just seeing what each funny thing the chest would say made me very happy to open them every time I found them, and added an extra level of fun to seek out as I played. This achievement part in Zero goes beyond trophies too, as without spoiling too much, what you achieve contributes to what you can carry over or see after each playthrough. Things can also be sped up with high-speed mode that you can turn on most of the time, and with the fact that weaker field enemies don't need to be fought makes doing a subsequent playthrough pretty tempting, as it likely won't be as long as my first one. However, since I have the PS4 version, which also has visuals that aren't as good that I talked about in my first impressions, it's not something I feel the need to do in this version, and would rather do in its next entry, Trails to Azure, that I'll likely be picking up on Switch. So while I did enjoy my time with the PS4 version, I think if you plan to dive deep into it, the better visuals on Switch or the PC version could be very fun, especially if you have a way to play portably. The fact I would prefer to play it this way doesn't change that I enjoyed Trails from Zero enough to want to play it again, which says to me it was a pretty enjoyable game, and generally I can't find a reason to fold it beyond the PS4 version not looking as good as the Switch and PC ones. It has a story well worth experiencing, and one I'm very glad made its way to the West, in a game that made me love the series even more and has me excited to see what it will show us next. Trails from Zero is a big undertaking, but the quality of its story and gameplay makes it worth every minute. It has a fascinating story that details the city and the significance of most of the people in it that contributes to the world we know as a whole, and from a narrative level can be considered just as good as newer Trails games, as the quality of story is here just like in every other entry. Great gameplay is present here too, just with a few less mechanics that has the benefit of making it more approachable, so if you usually like Trails games, I think there's a lot to enjoy here, and if you can handle older looking visuals that look better or worse depending what you play it on, there's once again a rich world to discover, with the beginning of this arc potentially considered one of the better jumping points in the series. It's made me very excited to play more of new and old Trails, as Zero has made my knowledge of Trails even richer and given me a thirst to know more, and made me very glad that this series exists as a game full of rich story and gameplay ideas that make its long play sessions fun and memorable in a way I look forward to experiencing once again soon. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried Trails from Zero, and if you have, what did you think of it? You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below. Thank you to NIS for the code, and until next time, thank you, bye!